There's this picture that keeps going around Twitter, and it's of Nara Smith and the ballerina farm family. And it's like, trad is so in right now. And the replies to this have been so funny. Everything from, is the trad in the room with us right now? Both of these women make 7-figure salaries. If trad means having a gay husband, then I guess so. And I think it's very interesting, this kind of aesthetic of a trad wife that's become a trend, and how it's very misleading, because often a lot of this content and these influencers, and even, you know, to a certain level, they kind of become actual celebrities who are promoting a lifestyle of a trad, you know, just a traditional quote unquote lifestyle. You're not actually doing that, because this is literally your business. This is an aesthetic. A lot of these women are selling courses on how to be a trad wife. So like, they're generating a business, you know, they are making an income, which is not traditional at all. Women weren't even allowed to have our own bank accounts until like 1974. Especially in our current political climate, and with things such as Roe v. Wade being revoked, and just all these really, you know, political extremists who are basically like fundamentalists. They literally want The Handmaid's Tale, you know, to become the reality of the United States. So it's a little dangerous, I think, to promote this. And I think it's especially important to remember the reality of what it was actually like to be a trad wife, you know, back in the 1950s, when we literally weren't given a choice. It's very easy for people to forget how recent so many things were, you know, when it comes to women's rights, when it comes to rights for people of color, you know, like the civil rights movement. None of that was really that long ago, and it's very easy to think of it as just being so far back in history, because, you know, when we're in school, we read these textbooks and sometimes it's like black and white photos. But in the 1950s, you know, a lot of women were put under medication. They were getting lobotomies because they were so depressed and lonely. And, you know, it's sold to us through these images, and, you know, even those vintage images of like the perfect little family, and they're always like white, and like they always look a very certain way, and like, oh my God, this is like what happiness is. This is the American dream. The reality of it was never really talked about, like mental health, even like the stress that husbands would be under, being alcoholics, domestic violence, financial stress. None of these things are ever portrayed, you know, in the vintage examples. And then also even now, people who actually truly benefit from this are the super, you know, wealthy people that are able to hire out help. So like the wife that has a full-time nanny, a chef, you know, if we're really throwing it back, like a butler, like do people still, I'm sure people still have butlers, a gardener, a maid, like someone to do the laundry, all of these things, because just doing all of those things by yourself is exhausting. It goes unnoticed. It's just kind of expected of you. So it's not really appreciated, you know, in the family unit and in society. I recently saw the David Chase, the creator of the Sopranos documentary. It's a 2-part series on HBO Max. If you're a fan of the Sopranos, I would definitely recommend it. Or even if you're just interested in, you know, behind the scenes of film production and stuff, it was so interesting. I love the Sopranos, and they brought up this scene from the show. It's like Carmela and Tony's ultimate showdown, but she finds out that he's been cheating on her again, and they have this like huge fight, and she admits to him that she's like been in love with this other guy for months, and it's like shocking. It's kind of like honestly scary, bro. Like the acting in that scene is so good. It's so fucked, because he's like, yeah, well, you know, you asked me what does she have that you don't, and she actually has a brain. I can actually talk to her about stuff. And she is just so rightfully so hurt by that, and she's like, I have a brain, I'm right here, like why don't you talk to me? And he's like, oh yeah, because you're always bitching at me to fix this or do that or like whatever. And she's like, well, who wanted it that way? So a lot of men like that want a more traditional wife, you know, one who stays home, takes care of the house, takes care of the kids. They don't want you to have your own interests or career or really even hobbies, because that will take away from the role that you serve. And so that's why it's very important to, you know, especially with all this sprinkle stuff and all that, it's like important to not fall in the mindset of being financially reliant on a man and being with a man who's like, yeah, I just want you to stay home, but they really mean that they want you to do all the domestic unpaid labor for them. And it's like, oh yeah, well, I'm the provider. I get to leave the house and have my own life and make money. And it's like, well, I get to do that because I have a job. Like, you don't. Like, they'll use it against you. A lot of men will. So, you know, it's fine to want a man that's a provider, and I think you should, you know, but it's always important to have your own life and your own source of income and your own bank account, even if you get married, and to always have a backup plan. And just not even necessarily, I mean, obviously if something were to happen in your relationship or in your marriage, but also just to remain sane and whole within yourself. You know, you just hear so many women who lose themselves in, you know, just that life of being a wife and a mother, and they lose all other forms of identity, you know, not really on purpose. It could be the most fulfilling thing to you, but all of that is going to change at some point. The kids are going to grow up, your relationship's going to change. And it's very easy to think, well, that's not going to happen to me, that's not going to happen to me, but that's the case in a lot of instances. And I think at the same time, it is talked about a lot more, but I think a lot of women also don't want to talk about it because it's like, damn, like I did everything right and I'm still not fulfilled. I'm still unhappy. I'm like, I think there's probably a lot of shame that also goes into that. A lot of people probably don't even want to talk about that, you know? That's why you really have to be selective of who you date, who you marry, because it's just very easy to be taken for granted. And that's why it's also very important to not do those quote unquote wifely trad wife things. No, but like cooking and cleaning for your boyfriend or someone you're like your situationship. You don't want to be of service, expecting you're going to get that in return. Just literally think of Jersey Shore when they would have girls come over that would start doing their dishes for them. They were like, oh, we love this shit. But it's not like they're saying that out of respect for the girls or because they like the girls, you know? You don't want to be that bitch. I always tell you all this, you don't want to be the girl on the phone that's like, oh, well, she'll come over and she'll clean the whole house and take care of me and then I'll send her on her way. You know, like, you don't want to be that girl. And again, I think a lot of girls do that just because they don't know any better and they think, well, I like this guy, like, I want to show him that I like him by doing things, like being of service to him, like showing him that I like him. But no. Men like when you're, like, unreachable to them. Like, what's with that? They'll respect you so much more when you, like, cuss them out, tell them no, walk away, don't talk to them for a few days, like. And it's also the whole, like, madonna-whore thing, you know, especially using the Sopranos as the example. It's like, well, I'm gonna have my wife, and this is just so true. This is like the whole trad wife thing, bro. Like, these guys, I have my wife who, you know, I'm with publicly because they look good, they're not gonna embarrass me, they're wholesome, they'll take care of, you know, the kids and, like, fill that role. And then I'm gonna have all my whores on the side that are gonna play their role. But you would never really, like, mix the two. I mean, that does happen, you know, where the mistress becomes the main bitch. But, you know, just generally speaking. So a man being like, oh, my wife, like, that's not really an honor. It's like, oh, cool, like, you want me to do all this stuff for free and, like, just be your little, like, maid. Like, oh, what an honor. Like, think of Elvis and Priscilla, you know, he was like, I basically want you to remain a virgin so that I can marry a virgin and you're going to be my wife. Because you're innocent, you're kind of like naive, you know, I can mold you. And that's why these weird ass guys, like in the industry, but also just in regular life, that's why they like the young girls, because they can mold them and like make them who they want to be, because the girl won't know any better because she doesn't have the life experience. Once you start thinking about this, it's just so interesting, all the examples, you know, in history and, you know, to current times where the single woman is the biggest threat to society, to these traditional systems, because she's breaking the mold and proving that someone can be okay, a woman can be okay without a man and without filling that traditional role. Y'all remember that book I read, In Defense of Witches? So good. Goes into the history of, you know, the witch, which is basically just a woman who's alone, or like an old maid, and it's like, oh, they're evil, something's wrong with them, they're always painted as someone who's like ugly. And then you see even now, you know, Taylor Swift, whether you like her music or like her or not, but she publicly says who she's supporting in the election, and the people on the other side are like calling her a cat lady. Oh my god, like as if that's like a bad negative thing, you know. It's like, oh, well, you must be choosing the wrong option because you're just a crazy cat lady who's unmarried with no kids. Like, well, your opinion doesn't even matter. And so they always try to use that against you when the alternative typically you know, statistically speaking, is usually worse. So again, that's why it's so important to be okay alone, to be okay by yourself, to build your own community of friends, other women, your support system, to have your own hobbies, make your own money, so that you can be very selective when it comes to choosing a partner, you know, especially if it's going to be a man, because a lot of women are forced to stay in these relationships or get into these, you know, bad relationships with men because they feel like they don't have another option, whether that's like financially or just even like this is the only person who's going to, you know, quote unquote love me or support me or be there for me. That doesn't have to be the case. You know, you can build your own support system. And I think just when you really know yourself and have a really strong connection to your inner self and your inner voice, that's when you're going to be able to have the clearest mind to make the best decisions and have the best discernment when it comes to these guys, you know, because the goal in life should not be to be a trad wife. Like, what do you gain? Like, unless you're very, very rich, you're going to be exhausted and eventually resent that. Like, you might love your kids, you might even love your husband, but you're going to resent being taken for granted, not having another option. If something were to happen, why is there this gap in your resume, you know? It's just important to think about everything. I'm not saying marriage is bad or if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, but there's like a difference, you know? And if you are going to do that, you need to be smart about it and not just blindly do it. You know, it's just tradition. It's the men will approve. They won't call me a crazy cat lady or a witch. I would love to hear your thoughts. And the whole ballerina farm thing, I don't think we ever even talked about that. But that's a whole like sad story in and of itself. I mean, I like her content, but like reading her story, like her billionaire husband, like, oh my God, bro. Look into it. Like, well, we don't even have time to get into that today, but anyway, let me know your thoughts on the whole trad wife trend. I just think it's like an aesthetic, but then it's like weird because it's kind of a risky thing for people to promote, you know? There's literally someone, I was reading an article, this girl's charging $6,000 for her how to be a trad wife course because she's a trad wife, you know, with her $6,000 course per person. Oh yeah, very like making an afternoon tea waiting for your husband to come home from work. Off the lewds. Anyway, speaking of scams, I wanted to talk about scams in the gut health community because I've been posting a little bit more, you know, just gut health stuff and like things in reference to the TBT vegan days, and I'm going to start doing more of that type of content because it's just what I live every day, you know? I'm like, why am I not making more content? This is like the biggest thing in my life, you know? Like, she's really a wellness girly through and through. But I feel almost kind of like apprehensive about it because there's just so many scams, I feel like, in the wellness community and in specifically the gut health community. Like, it's always people trying to sell you something, people trying to sell you these green juice powders or whatever supplement. And it's not like supplements are inherently bad, but when people are like, just take this and your bloating will go away. The truth is, if you have chronic bloating or inflammation or whatever it is, like, just taking a green powder is not really going to help. Oh, I'm traveling, or like I ate something crazy last night, like let me take this today. Like, that is different. But if you're chronically dealing with something, I think it's really important to look at the whole picture. And I would definitely be wary of people in any, you know, community, but I think especially the wellness community that are just, you know, always tagging a product, trying to sell it and making unrealistic claims about it, I think is the thing. Because it's like, get your coin. Like, I will definitely tag a product and promote it if I like it. But it's like people who are like, this will cure your bloating. This will like cure your digestion, and that's it. Because especially a green juice powder is just not going to do that. And I will say, if you are dealing with like chronic bloating or just feeling like nothing is digesting well, or you never have a flat stomach, you definitely have to look at your entire diet and lifestyle. And honestly, y'all, for me, what really helps is bone broth and just including more animal products basically in my diet that are going to have collagen, gelatin, you know, just those essential vitamins and nutrients that are going to be, you know, like things that have collagen in them. They're going to be so much better for your gut lining. They're going to repair your gut lining. They're going to improve your joint health, your mobility, your skin, hair, nails, like all of that. And I think it just really is about eating whole foods and real foods. Because if you're eating like shit all day and then you're also adding on top of that a processed green juice powder, like that's obviously not the worst thing in the world you can eat, but that's only gonna really do so much. I think when people just automatically want to go to a supplement instead of like looking at the rest of what they're doing, it's kind of like putting a band-aid on it, or it's like you're not truly dedicated fully to like making the change and doing like the hard actual work of like changing what you're doing every day. It's like, oh, I'll just have my aesthetic drink in the morning and that's it. You know, it's like, no. So I was actually reading this article, I'll link it below, titled How to Spot a Nutrition Scam. And they say things like, if there's limited evidence on the topic, they say if the advice is inflexible and one size fits all, which that's really true. And that's why I don't like to talk shit about like vegan. I will make jokes about that specific era, but I'm never like, oh, you shouldn't be vegan, you know, because a lot of people go vegan and it really helps them and they feel great. That ended up not being the case for me over time. And that's why I would just encourage people to try different things and again, find what works for them. However, there are obviously certain things that are just going to be like overall, you know, advice for everyone, like limit alcohol, limit refined sugars. They also said if there's so many rules and the advice only works if you follow them to a T, you must eat exactly X grams of the food at exactly 6 a.m. otherwise it's useless. That's total bullshit designed to make you blame yourself for failure instead of realizing it's the nutrition scam advice that failed you. Mood. Nutrition scams make wellness seem much more difficult than it is. That is so true. So I will link this article down below because it is very useful and there is just a lot of information out there. So yeah, I mean, if you're not dealing with anything insane that you need like a doctor for, then I would in general just recommend trying different things. And also I think something important to keep in mind is that you shouldn't ever take everyone's advice 100%. Because everyone's their own person, and even if you really agree with a lot of what somebody says, you still need that room to think for yourself because you're an individual. Everyone was raised differently. Like even two siblings from the same parents will have totally different personalities and even views of the world, you know? So just keep that in mind when taking advice, whether it's about nutrition or anything. If it's from me, if it's literally from anyone, again, you need to be able to think for yourself, and just blindly following somebody, not even blindly, but just literally doing everything someone says, it's like you need discernment. You need to be able to think for yourself. Not everything should work for you because you're your own person. I am going to get into some questions from IG, and one of those questions, because I was going to talk about something more like relationship dating themed. See, I'm trying to do like different sections in the podcast now. We're trying to be a little more organized. I felt like I was just repeating myself a lot, and so we're trying to diversify. So let me know if you have anything specific you want me to talk about. I'm thinking like trending topic, diet or like health, wellness, dating, relationships, answering questions from IG. If you have another idea of like a section, let me know. But I feel like this just gives a little more diversification, okay? So I was going to talk about something related to relationships, and somebody on IG, actually my friend, said talk about dating apps. My personal relationship with dating apps is I've never really taken them seriously ever in my life. Have I used them? Yes. In the sense of downloading it. I have gone on a few Hinge dates. It's never really ended well. Like it was only ever one date, you know, and I just feel like I really prefer to meet someone organically, and I just feel like you can tell so much through someone's vibe when you meet them. And I know like on Hinge or like on these dating apps, whatever, you can like FaceTime before and all that. I don't know, people have very mixed opinions, because I'll have some friends that'll be like, well, it's a way to like weed them out, but then I'm like, I guess like, oh, like, you know, they're looking for a relationship, but it's like anyone could say that. Like you could just be like, yeah, I get more matches when I tell them that I'm looking for something serious. Or it's also like some of these guys, when they're so pressed that they want to be in a relationship and get married on their profile, I'm kind of like, whoa, like relax. Like, like I feel like you care about being in a relationship more than just like having a connection with someone naturally, you know? Because that's the thing too, if you're so pressed to get married or like have a certain title, it's just kind of giving that you're pressed and you're putting that over like a genuine connection that might lead to that. You know, you want to like skip ahead, and it's kind of like not selfish, but just like, I don't know, like I don't like that. I also feel like it's just less investment that a guy will have to make, because if I'm out and about, whether it's like out or just like out in public, and a guy has to like cross the room for me, offer to buy me a drink, they have to put a little bit more investment versus just like, oh, we both liked each other, and it's just like, I don't know, kind of dry. Like, you literally just had to send me a like, and I like the look of your profile, so I agree to meet up with you. Like, that's kind of scary to me. I don't know. So there's definitely this safety factor of it also. I will always re-download Hinge, look through it, not meet up with anyone, delete it. A few months go by, I re-download, like, you know. I feel like also, since I have lived in big cities, it is just easier to meet people naturally because there's just so many people. So it's like, I wouldn't say I'm against them. I wouldn't necessarily recommend them. I don't really use them. That's not like how I date, you know. I like go out, I meet people out and about. Even like, I mean, I'm honestly trying to not meet guys off IG because I feel like that's annoying. And like, I don't want a guy that's on IG, okay? But even that just feels even like a little bit more organic. So I don't know. Let me know your experience with them. Like, I wouldn't say I'm anti-dating app. Like, I've had friends who meet their boyfriends on there, but I'm not like so excited about them. I just like to feel someone's vibe first before I even like agree to go out with you. And then what I was gonna say is, I feel like a lot of those guys are like chronically on dating apps. So like, you're gonna find them, maybe you'll start dating, maybe you get in a relationship, and then you find them cheating on you with the dating app. Like, they never deleted the dating app. They love dating apps. And I mean, that could happen on Instagram too, you know? That ever happens to you? You meet a guy off IG and then you find out he's cheating on you, doing what he did to you with the other girls on IG. You know? It's like a lose-lose. I need to, what did Nicole Richie say? I met my husband the old-fashioned way in the club. You know, I'm not recommending that. But just in terms of going outside, feeling like, just feeling a vibe. And also, these guys are like, I went on a couple Hinge dates this year, y'all, like earlier in the year, and the guys are kind of weird. I don't know. They were so over the top blown away that I looked better than my photos, which, period, but it's, you know. And then this one guy, I just remember kept going on and on about like how these girls from dating apps just talk so much and they're just like so annoying, and it's like, you're kind of putting, it was like actually interesting to hear him say that, like, what goes on in your mind, interesting. Like, this is what these guys think. It's kind of like, it was a little jarring. But then it's like, you're also kind of trying to make me like you because you think you're complimenting me by putting another woman down. And then it's just like, yeah, like, these girls will come in and they're like so overweight, they look nothing like their photos, like they use all these filters, and it's like, okay, like, if I had felt this vibe, if we had met organically, I would not have gone on a date with you, you know? So it just felt like a waste of time. And I know it's a numbers game, but I'm not pressed. I'm not pressed to date. Like, if I'm out and about having a good time by myself or with my friends and I happen to meet someone, great, and I like your vibe, we can go on a date. We'll see where it goes. But I just always feel a little desperate on the apps because I'm like, ugh. I feel like I'm too good for it. I'm sorry, but that's really the truth. I don't know. I would love to hear your thoughts. Again, I'm not like, oh, I'm not against it. Also, I wouldn't say meet a guy at the club. I know that can happen. But then it's like, same thing. It's like, it's a guy that's at the club. And it's like, yeah, I'm at the club. What are you doing at the club? Not even the club, just like a party, like a bar. Like, the club's a little different. Like, if you're just at an event or like a really good DJ is playing, I feel like that's a little better. Like, the club is a little crazy. Unless he's a baller. No. So again, I would love to hear your thoughts on dating apps. What's your experience been? Maybe you're in a relationship right now with someone you met off a dating app. How did you know that they were going to be different? I don't know. Sometimes I'm like, I should just go on a date every day this week. Just, eat dinner every day. Speed dating, but nobody knows except me. So first question is the pressure to buy/own your own place. Like, do we even have to? LOL. I mean, literally, I mean, there's nothing like, and it's like an investment, you know? I mean, obviously it depends on where you are. Like, owning in New York City is going to be insane compared to renting. Buying, especially land, is such a good investment because that's like a limited resource. So you're gonna, you know, that's only going to go up in value. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of benefits to renting in the sense of you don't have to pay for like all this stuff. Like, you don't have to like rewire your house. But then at the same time, it's like someone else is responsible for that. So if you have a shitty landlord, that's like such a headache. Being a homeowner is a lot of responsibility. Like, there's so much you have to do. You can't just like call the maintenance man and they come fix it for you. Like, you have to do that. But then again, it's like, it's an investment. So it's like, that's going to be worth something to you in the end versus renting. You're just quote unquote throwing money away. But it's like, if you're not ready for that responsibility, then it's like worth it to not, you know? Embracing solo activities. Oh my God, y'all. I had the best solo day the other day. It's actually in my vlog. But yeah, I just like walked around the city. I got a treat. No matter where you are, it's just about having that good energy within yourself. I think a huge thing that helps is taking your headphones out. Like, obviously, if you just want to be left alone, like, that's perfectly fine. And I definitely do that. But if you're kind of like, ooh, like, let's see where the day brings me. Let's make a little magic. You have to take your headphones off and you have to just experience the world and the true ambiance, make conversation with people, be very like open. And it's just like, you can do so much more when you're by yourself. I don't like going out late at night by myself. First of all, I mean, if that's your personality, that's fine, but like just for a safety thing. And then it's just like, that gives, sometimes I can give like, you're a lady of the night, which no shade if you are, but if you're not and you don't want to come off like that, then, you know, happy hour by yourself, at dinner by yourself, or, you know, of course, earlier in the day. Like, there's just so many things you can do. And again, if you're cute, people want to do the most for you when they see you by yourself and you have good vibes and you're kind to people. Like, that can get you so far. And just like being by yourself, you know, because it's less pressure. People are less scared to talk to you because it's scary to talk to a group of girls, but one, it's like, ooh, maybe I have a chance. Like, let me entice her with some amenities. Like, taking off your headphones is a big key part of it if you do want to like interact with people. So this goes into the next question, which this girl says, I want to put more effort into my looks, but often feel as if it's not even worth it. Advice, babe. I'm sorry if this is not the advice you want to hear, but it is always worth it. It is always worth it. And it's sad to say, you know, too bad. We live in a society, capital S. But it is always worth it. Like, always. Everyone judges a book by its cover, you know? So if you look your best every day, your life experiences will go up, up, and up. And it's just like, you start to feel better about yourself. Less dusties try to talk to you on the street and just in general, because, you know, when you look like kind of bummy and way more guys talk to you, it's because they feel like you have low standards. Like, it's kind of actually an insult. It's not like, oh, I must look so good with no makeup. I can still pull with no makeup. It's like, no, they're just not intimidated by you. So when you have the full glam and your little classy outfit, not the full glam with like a Fashion Nova bodysuit, everything out, but like a little classy outfit, full beat, hair done, everything done, nails done, hair done, everything did. Very worth it. Yes. Like, babe, you have to. Come on. Like, you just have, and it's just, even for yourself, like, you feel so much better. Truly, it is so worth it, and you get way more out of life, because people will be nicer to you, and you'll just get stuff handed to you. Pretty privilege. It's real. Take advantage of it, babe. Like, we're only young for so long, you know? You can be chic when you're old, but it's like, you just have to think about it as a social currency. Let me use it while I got it. People that get you attached then ghost you, so you have to chase them. A lot of, this is actually a guy that said this, but A lot of guys, I don't know how it is in the gay community. Sure, it's, you know, there's similarities, but I know for the girlies, it's like the guys that think they're the prize will do this. And so if you know you look good, you have a high sense of self-value and worth, you will recognize this as a common scam. And so you just won't play into it. The first thing is you don't get attached to anyone before they prove themselves. And that goes for friendships, someone you're dating, relationships, anything. You don't get attached. Because what are you attached to? How they look? See, that's how they get you. Are you attached to their words? Because it's like if you were attached to like how they're making you feel secure in your life by like paying bills for you or doing this and that or took you shopping or something, you wouldn't even be pressed. You'd be like, well, oh my god, bro, my camera was fully charged before this. You'd be like, well, at least I got something out of it, you know, so you wouldn't be hurt. But when you're getting attached to just like people's words and the future faking and the promise of something later on, that's how they get you, and you just want to chase that feeling, so that's why you end up chasing them. So always hold back, and then if they ghost you, you ghost them right back, and you just have to kind of accept that's the end of that. But then if they come back, they need to earn their way back, you know, so you start over. I don't care if you even hooked up. You don't let them hook up with you until they prove themselves. Who inspires you and why? This is something I think about a lot because I'm like, who does inspire me? I'm just inspired by women that are older than me, that are doing what they want to do. I mean, like, obviously someone younger could also, like, inspire me. Anyone who's, like, doing what it is that they want to do and is following their own path, even if that may be different from what society expects of them. But typically that would be older women, and that's because I think it's so important to have older role models, because if all the people you look up to are like in their early 20s, it's like you're gonna have a rude awakening when you turn 30 or 40 or 50, you know? So it's important to always be looking like it's so true. Like, I don't want to say respect your elders, because some of these people are literally like psychotic, racist, like misogynist, you know? But you can learn a lot from the wisdom of older women, you know, because they've been through it. And then again, that does not mean blindly take anyone's advice, but when you find someone that you're like, hey, like, this is so cool, her life story is cool, like, what can we learn from this? And that's also why it's important to have representation of that in media, you know, like a lot of actresses stop getting work after a certain age because it's like, oh, well, you're too old. But I think that is starting to change. You know, we're seeing more examples of that. So anyway, that's going to be all I answer. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Thank you so much for listening. Let me know again what kind of topics you want me to discuss next week. Don't forget to share this on your IG story. Follow me, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye, everyone.